What if I told you that before the iPhone became the most iconic smartphone in history, there was another company that ruled the mobile world so completely that governments trusted it with national secrets. Fortune 500 CEOs refused to leave home without it. Presidents carried it into the White House, and business executives believed no competitor could ever replace it. That company was BlackBerry. In the early 2000s, owning a BlackBerry wasn't just about making phone calls. It was a symbol of power, intelligence, and success. If you wanted the smartest phone on earth, there was only one choice. Then, in 2007, everything changed. Apple walked onto a stage and introduced a device that many industry experts laughed at. It had no physical keyboard. Its battery life seemed questionable. It was expensive. Business users dismissed it as a toy. Even BlackBerry's own leadership believed the iPhone could never compete with the security, efficiency, and enterprise dominance they had spent years building. From the outside, their confidence seemed justified. After all, why would serious professionals abandon the world's most trusted smartphone for a touchscreen gadget designed by a computer company? But history doesn't reward the company that wins first. It rewards a company that understands where the future is going. Over the next decade, one of the greatest business battles in technology history unfolded. BlackBerry continued improving the product that had already made it successful, while Apple quietly changed the very definition of what a smartphone could be. It wasn't just a battle between two devices. It was a battle between two philosophies, two business strategies, and two completely different visions of the future. So how did the world's smartest phone company lose to a newcomer that many believed had no chance? And more importantly, what business mistakes turned an unstoppable market leader into one of the greatest case studies of disruption, while Apple built the most valuable technology empire in modern history? To answer that question, we have to travel back to a time before the iPhone existed, when one small Canadian company had already conquered the world, and had absolutely no idea that its greatest competitor was about to rewrite the rules forever. Long before smartphones became entertainment devices, before people spent hours scrolling through social media, before mobile apps controlled our daily lives, there was a time when a phone had only one purpose: helping people communicate faster and work more efficiently. In that world, one company didn't just build a better phone. It completely redefined mobile productivity. That company was BlackBerry. To understand why its downfall shocked the entire technology industry, we first have to understand just how dominant it really was. Because BlackBerry wasn't simply competing in the smartphone market. For nearly a decade, it was the smartphone market. The story begins in Waterloo, Ontario, Canada, during the mid-1980s. Unlike Silicon Valley startups chasing consumer gadgets, a small technology company called Research in Motion, better known as RIM, had a different vision. Founded by Mike Lazaridis and later joined by Jim Balsillie, the company believed the future of communication wasn't about making better telephone calls. It was about moving information instantly and securely. At a time when computers were still slow, the internet was in its infancy and mobile communication barely existed. This vision sounded almost impossible. Yet while many technology companies were focused on hardware, RIM quietly invested in wireless data transmission, secure communication, and mobile networking. They weren't building products for popularity. They were building solutions for the future. Throughout the 1990s, RIM introduced a series of wireless pagers that allowed professionals to receive messages almost instantly. For business executives, lawyers, bankers, and government officials, this technology felt revolutionary. Important information no longer had to wait until someone returned to the office. Emails, notifications, and business updates could now travel directly into their hands. It wasn't just faster communication. It was a completely new way of working. In an increasingly global economy, where decisions often had to be made within minutes instead of days, that advantage became priceless. Then came the breakthrough that would change the company forever. In 1999, RIM introduced the first BlackBerry device equipped with secure wireless email. At first glance, it didn't look impressive. There was no colorful display, no music player, no impressive camera, and certainly no touchscreen. But hidden beneath its simple appearance was something competitors struggled to match: reliability. Emails arrived almost instantly through BlackBerry's secure push email system, eliminating the need for users to manually check their inboxes. For today's audience, instant email feels ordinary. Back then, it felt like science fiction. Business leaders immediately recognized its value. Instead of waiting to reach a desktop computer, CEOs could negotiate billion-dollar deals while traveling. Investment bankers could respond to market changes before competitors even opened their laptops. Lawyers remained connected to clients from airports. Government agencies exchanged sensitive information through encrypted communication systems that quickly became some of the most trusted in the world. BlackBerry wasn't simply selling devices. It was selling speed, security, and productivity. Those three qualities became the foundation of one of the strongest business brands of the early 21st century. As demand exploded, BlackBerry evolved from a niche enterprise tool into a global symbol of professional success. Walking into a boardroom with a BlackBerry clipped to your belt or resting on a conference table wasn't just practical. It sent a message. It told everyone that you were important enough to always be connected. Soon, celebrities, entrepreneurs, politicians, and world leaders adopted the device. Even the President of the United States fought to keep using a BlackBerry because of its unmatched security. Few technology products have ever earned that level of institutional trust. But perhaps BlackBerry's greatest innovation wasn't the device itself. It was the ecosystem built around it. The company created its own secure servers, enterprise software, encrypted messaging infrastructure, and mobile management systems that allowed corporations to control thousands of employee devices from a single network. For businesses, switching away from BlackBerry wasn't as simple as buying another phone. Entire organizations depended on its infrastructure. This created extraordinarily high switching costs and competitive advantage that seemed almost impossible to break. Every new corporate customer strengthened the platform, attracted more enterprise clients, and reinforced BlackBerry's reputation as the undisputed king of business communication. By the mid-2000s, BlackBerry's growth had become extraordinary. Millions of professionals depended on its devices every day. Revenue climbed rapidly. Market share expanded across continents. Investors celebrated the company as one of the greatest technology success stories outside Silicon Valley. Analysts believed its leadership position was secure, and competitors appeared years behind. To many observers, BlackBerry had already won the future. But history has a habit of exposing the hidden weaknesses inside even the strongest empires. BlackBerry had mastered the needs of business customers so completely that it slowly began believing those needs would never change. It continued refining the keyboard that executives loved, strengthening the security corporations demanded, and improving the products that had already made it successful. Yet somewhere beyond the boardrooms and enterprise contracts, a different kind of customer was beginning to emerge. One who cared less about corporate email and more about experience, simplicity, and possibility. And in California, one man was preparing to introduce a product that didn't aim to build a better BlackBerry. It aimed to make the entire idea of a smartphone feel outdated. By the middle of the 2000s, BlackBerry had achieved something that very few technology companies ever accomplish. It wasn't simply selling phones. It had become a symbol of intelligence, productivity, and success. Walk into the headquarters of almost any Fortune 500 company, and chances were high that executives carried a BlackBerry clipped to their belts. Government officials trusted it with sensitive communications. Investment bankers answered emails between meetings. Lawyers negotiated billion-dollar deals from airports. Even presidents and prime ministers relied on BlackBerry because its encrypted messaging system was considered one of the safest communication platforms ever built. Owning a BlackBerry wasn't about fashion. It was about status, efficiency, and trust. In many ways, BlackBerry had become the operating system of global business itself. From the outside, its future looked unstoppable. But history has a habit of changing direction at the exact moment when a company believes it has already won. That confidence slowly turned into overconfidence. Inside BlackBerry, executives believed they understood the smartphone market better than anyone else because they had practically created it. Their customers weren't teenagers looking for entertainment. They were professionals whose businesses depended on secure communication. Every design decision reflected that philosophy. Long battery life mattered more than beautiful displays. Physical keyboards mattered more than touchscreens. Secure email mattered more than games or entertainment. BlackBerry wasn't trying to build the most exciting phone. It was trying to build the most reliable one. And for years, that strategy worked perfectly. The problem wasn't that BlackBerry misunderstood its existing customers. The problem was that it completely misunderstood the next generation of customers. Then came January 9th, 2007. On a stage in San Francisco, Steve Jobs introduced a product that looked almost impossible compared to every smartphone available at the time. It had no physical keyboard. It relied almost entirely on a touchscreen. It combined a phone, an iPod, and an internet communicator into a single device. Most importantly, Apple wasn't selling another business tool. It was introducing an entirely new computing experience. During the presentation, Jobs didn't compare the iPhone to BlackBerry's email system or enterprise security. Instead, he demonstrated smooth scrolling, pinch-to-zoom gestures, desktop-class web browsing, visual voicemail, and an interface that felt almost magical. The audience wasn't simply watching another product launch. They were watching the beginning of a completely different philosophy of personal technology. Ironically, many people inside BlackBerry weren't impressed. Some executives believed the touchscreen keyboard would never replace physical keys because business users type thousands of emails every week. Others questioned the battery life, the lack of enterprise security, and the absence of many features BlackBerry users already enjoyed. From a technical perspective, some of those criticisms were valid. The first iPhone wasn't perfect, but Apple wasn't trying to beat BlackBerry at its own game. It was changing the game itself. That distinction would prove fatal. One of the biggest mistakes companies make during periods of disruption is comparing new innovations to current customer expectations instead of future customer behavior. BlackBerry evaluated the iPhone through the eyes of existing corporate clients. Apple designed the iPhone for people who didn't yet realize how much they would eventually use smartphones for everything beyond email. Consumers didn't just want communication anymore. They wanted photography, music, maps, web browsing, gaming, entertainment, social media, shopping, banking, and creativity, all inside one beautifully designed device. The smartphone was evolving from a communication tool into a digital lifestyle platform. Apple understood this transformation years before most of the industry. The real revolution arrived 1 year later. In 2008, Apple launched the App Store. At first glance, it looked like a simple online marketplace where developers could publish software. In reality, it completely changed the economics of the smartphone industry. Until then, the value of a phone depended mostly on the hardware built by the manufacturer. After the App Store, the value of a phone increasingly depended on the ecosystem surrounding it. Every new developer created more useful applications. More applications attracted more customers. More customers encouraged even more developers to build software. Economists call this a network effect, a self-reinforcing cycle where every participant increases the value of the platform for everyone else. Apple had quietly transformed the iPhone from a product into an ecosystem. BlackBerry struggled to recognize just how important this shift would become. Its strength had always been hardware, enterprise software, and secure communication infrastructure. Building a thriving consumer app ecosystem required a completely different mindset. Developers naturally focus on platforms where they could reach the largest audiences and generate the highest revenue. As more developers chose Apple's platform, consumers found even more reasons to buy iPhones. As more consumers bought iPhones, developers became even more committed to Apple's ecosystem. The gap widened with every passing year. Meanwhile, Apple continued improving not just the iPhone itself, but the entire experience surrounding it. Hardware, software, cloud services, design, customer support, retail store accessories, and developer tools all work together as one integrated system. This level of vertical integration created an advantage that competitors found incredibly difficult to replicate. BlackBerry was still thinking about selling better smartphones. Apple was building a digital universe that customers would never want to leave. And just as BlackBerry began realizing the true scale of the challenge, another powerful competitor was preparing to enter the battlefield, one that would make the smartphone war even more brutal than anyone had imagined. By the end of the 2000s, the smartphone industry had become a battlefield unlike anything the technology world had ever witnessed. But what made this war so fascinating wasn't that Apple was winning. It was that the rules of competition had completely changed. BlackBerry was still fighting the battle it had mastered for years: secure email, enterprise communication, and physical productivity. Apple, meanwhile, was competing in an entirely different market, one centered around software, ecosystems, and user experience. While BlackBerry continued improving the smartphone, Apple quietly redefined what a smartphone could become. And just when BlackBerry thought it had identified its biggest rival, another powerful force entered the market and made survival even more difficult. That force was Android. Unlike Apple, Google wasn't trying to build a premium smartphone business around one device. Instead, it built an operating system that any manufacturer could use. Samsung, HTC, LG, Motorola, Sony, and dozens of other companies suddenly gained access to a modern smartphone platform capable of competing with the iPhone. This strategy transformed the market almost overnight. Consumers no longer had only two choices. Every price range, every screen size, and every design philosophy became available through Android. Competition exploded. Innovation accelerated, and smartphone adoption reached billions of people worldwide. For BlackBerry, this created a nightmare. It was no longer competing against one revolutionary product. It was competing against an entire ecosystem of manufacturers, developers, and software companies moving faster than ever before. Instead of simplifying the company's strategy, BlackBerry became increasingly divided. Some executives wanted to protect the enterprise business that had made the company famous. Others believed BlackBerry needed to compete directly with Apple in the consumer market. Different teams pushed different ideas, different operating systems, and different product directions. Innovation slowed. Decision-making became complicated. Products arrived late. By the time new devices reached customers, Apple and Android manufacturers had already introduced something even better. One of the biggest examples was BlackBerry 10. The operating system was modern, elegant, and filled with genuinely innovative ideas. Features like gesture-based navigation, BlackBerry Hub, advanced multitasking, and enterprise-grade security were praised by reviewers. Many experts even believe BlackBerry 10 was one of the smartest mobile operating systems ever created. But timing matters just as much as innovation. When BlackBerry 10 finally launched in 2013, Apple had already built a mature app store with hundreds of thousands of applications, while Android had expanded into virtually every corner of the smartphone market. Consumers no longer bought phones based only on hardware specifications. They bought ecosystems. People weren't asking, which phone has the best keyboard? They were asking, which phone works with my apps, my photos, my cloud storage, my smartwatch, my laptop, my payments, and my everyday life? That single change in consumer psychology became almost impossible for BlackBerry to overcome. History repeatedly shows that technology companies rarely lose because they suddenly become less intelligent. They lose because the definition of value changes faster than they can adapt. Kodak invented the digital camera, but continued protecting film. Nokia built incredible hardware, but underestimated software. BlackBerry perfected mobile communication, but underestimated digital ecosystems. The lesson is remarkably consistent. The market doesn't reward yesterday's innovation. It rewards tomorrow's vision. Meanwhile, Apple continued executing one of the greatest long-term business strategies in modern history. Every year, the iPhone became more powerful. Every software update improved existing devices. Services like iCloud, Apple Music, FaceTime, AirDrop, Apple Watch, AirPods, Apple Pay, and later Apple Intelligence transformed individual products into one connected experience. Each new Apple device made every other Apple device more valuable. Customers weren't simply purchasing an iPhone anymore. They were entering an ecosystem that became increasingly difficult to leave. From a business perspective, this is known as ecosystem lock-in. Unlike traditional customer loyalty created through advertising, ecosystem loyalty is created through convenience. When your photos automatically sync across devices, your messages appear everywhere, your files are instantly accessible, your smartwatch unlocks your laptop, and your payments work seamlessly, switching to another platform suddenly becomes inconvenient. Apple didn't just build satisfied customers. It built long-term relationships. BlackBerry, despite its legendary reputation for security, couldn't match that level of integration. As sales continued falling, The company gradually exited the mainstream smartphone business and shifted its focus towards cybersecurity, enterprise software, automotive operating systems, and secure communications. Ironically, BlackBerry never stopped being an outstanding technology company. It simply stopped being the smartphone company people remembered. Fast forward to 2026, and the contrast couldn't be clearer. Apple remains one of the world's most valuable companies, with hundreds of millions of active iPhone users, industry-leading processors, long software support, advanced privacy features, artificial intelligence integration, an unmatched app ecosystem, and one of the strongest premium brands ever created. Meanwhile, BlackBerry phones have become part of technology history, remembered with respect, nostalgia, and admiration, but no longer part of the mainstream conversation. So if someone asks today, should I buy a BlackBerry or an iPhone? The answer isn't simply about cameras, performance, or operating systems. It's about understanding how technology evolved. The modern smartphone is no longer just a communication device. It's your office, your wallet, your entertainment center, your camera, your identity, and your connection to the digital world. And that transformation is exactly the future BlackBerry failed to see. But perhaps the most important question isn't why BlackBerry disappeared.